Right, welcome back. Other news at this hour, the ANC Youth League will finally hold its national conference at the end of June. The league has been plagued with leadership instability and has been led by interim structures since the disbandment of the National Executive Council. So perhaps to take this discussion further, we're going to be joined via Zoom by Mntuwoxolo Ngudle for this discussion. Mtu, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here on the SABC. I believe you are joining us by telephone. Perhaps as we look at the state of readiness and preparedness heading into this Congress, can you confirm whether the Congress is actually taking place or is it going to be postponed again?
Greetings to you, greetings to the listeners at home. Yes, the Congress is continuing on the 30th of June until the 4th of July 2023. Yeah, it's continuing.
All right, thank you for that confirmation. Perhaps you could speak to the main program of action of the leadership that will be elected at the Congress.
The main program of action for the ANC Youth League leadership, as it were, is that we are currently discussing documents that have been released by the National Youth Task Team. Its program of action is anchored on economic freedom and social change. You'd realize that the ANC Youth League in 2011 would have developed a generational mission for the ANC Youth League generation of the since 2011. After few years or many years of the democratic breakthrough in 1994, it would have then analyzed the political and social situation of South Africa and subsequently developed a program of action of economic freedom in our lifetime. Now, the 26th National Congress leadership is saying, let's revisit that particular program, look at the achievements that have been made around the program, look at the 7 cardinal pillars that were proposed in the National Congress of the ANC Youth League in June 2011. And that, amongst those, is the issue about the nationalization without compensation, expropriation without compensation for equitable redistribution, for example. And now, this 26th National Congress leadership says, actually, it should be expropriation without compensation for socialization of the Southeast, because the equitable redistribution has not happened since 2011, for example, and since 1994, there has not been a fair share of wealth and income in the country's economy since 1994. And we make a proposition that, and we implore people to go and read our proposition. For example, on the land reform program, we argue that the land reform program, as it were, has not fulfilled the hopes and aspirations of the South African people. This is because the ownership patterns of the land continue to be in the minority of this country, who are white in the main. 72% of the land, productive land, continues to be in the white community, whilst only about 5% of land ownership. This is a report of the Land Audit of 2017, giving us clear, exposing those ownership patterns.
Sure. Okay, so let me interrupt you there. You've spoken about economic freedom and social change that is required. We're obviously seeing also vacuum in youth leadership in South Africa to date. Perhaps the Youth League itself needing to hold government and the governing party accountable. We're looking at the stakes that the youth are facing at this point. High unemployment levels. There's obviously triple threats of poverty, unemployment and inequality. I wonder at this point how relevant the ANC Youth League is in addressing these challenges. How do they begin to speak to people between the ages of 14 and 35?
The ANC Youth League is still a very relevant organization because it as an organization is an autonomous organization that is a critical body of opinion within the body politics of the movement as a whole. And these are propositions that we are making in terms of policy, of industrial and social policy. One, for example, we are arguing that the ownership patterns, as we were saying, in terms of the macro and microeconomic policy, as it were, in South Africa, that look, the value chains in the South African economy are monopolized. They are owned by monopolies and oligopolies. And unless we disaggregate these value chains for the participation of youth-owned, women-owned, black-owned SMMEs, there will never be a meaningful participation of the majority of the South African people in the economy. And that the South African economy has been a very small economy that needs to be grown, expanded. The post-1994 needs to be expanded in terms of the productive sectors of the economy. And there's not been much investment in the productive sectors of the economy, meaning in the value adding now of the mineral resources that we have on iron ore, for example, for steel production. Steel production has been downsized in South Africa. And when you export raw iron ore into any other country of the world, you are exporting jobs. And that's the point we're making. And by exporting jobs, it means you are leaving the South African youth loitering on the streets without anything to do, whether graduate or semi-skilled or unskilled youth, because there are no industries to absorb them. And we're saying let's invest in import replacement industrialization. Let's ensure that the value chains are disaggregated for purposes of SMMEs to participate, but also to create the much needed jobs. That's the argument we're making in the discussion documents.
All right.
And we're saying the historic problem of South Africa is the black poor problem. You see, the face of poverty in South Africa is black people.
No, Mtu, there's obviously lots of questions at this point. Perhaps as we look at South Africa, the role of youth and perhaps what the prospects are for the future labor force of this country. I'm going to have to leave the conversation there for now. And thank you for your time with us. Mntuwoxolo Ngudle, he is the head of policy of the ANC Youth League. Just speaking about the Youth League that is set to hold the national conference at the end of June. Looking at the issue of leadership, instability, perhaps also what we can expect from them, perhaps as we edge closer to elections come 2024. Again, thank you to Mtu for his time with us here on the SABC.